Good afternoon, everyone. Happy blessed Wednesday. Welcome to our ray of light of today through our legal love moment. Happy blessed Wednesday. On Wednesdays, we honor Saint Joseph. And today, we are honoring also the great doctor of the church, St. Thomas Aquinas. So, in the Liturgy of the Hours on the Office of Readings of today, there was a beautiful piece of writing written by the St. Thomas Aquinas. And the title is The Cross Exemplifies Every Virtue. And we thought it was a beautiful writing. So, what I did is I broke it down so that we will be, more inclined to retain it in our hearts. So the first thing that St. Thomas Aquinas said is, why did the Son of God have to suffer for us? Well, two main reasons. As a remedy for sin, and as an example of how to act in our everyday life. Whoever wishes to live perfectly should do nothing, St. Thomas Aquinas says, but disdain what Christ disdained on the cross and desire what he desired. For the cross exemplifies every virtue. If you seek the example of love, greater love than this no man has than to lay down his life for his friends. Such a man was our Lord Jesus on the cross. It should not be difficult to bear whatever hardships come our way during our day for his sake. If you seek patience, you will find no better example than the cross. Great patience occurs in two ways. One patiently suffers much, or when one is able to avoid and yet does not avoid suffering. So our Lord endured much on the cross, as you can see, and did so patiently, because when he suffered, he did not threaten, he was led like a sheep to the slaughter, and he did not open his mouth. In patience, let us run for the prize set before us, looking upon our Lord Jesus, who for the joy set before him bore his cross and despised the shame. If you seek an example of humility, look upon the crucified one. For God wished to be judged by Pontius Pilate and to die. If you seek an example of obedience, follow him who became obedient to the Father even unto death. For just as by the disobedience of one man, Adam, many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one, many were made righteous. If you seek an example of despising earthly things, follow our Lord Jesus, who upon the cross he was stripped, mocked, spat upon, struck, crowned with thorns, and given only vinegar and gall to drink. Do not be attached, therefore, to clothing and riches, because they divided my garments among themselves, nor to honors, for he experienced harsh words and scourgings, nor to greatness of ranks, for weaving a crown of thorns they placed it on his head, nor to anything delightful, for in his thirst he gave him vinegar to drink. So, dear family, just a little summary of what St. Thomas Aquinas learned from the cross. Disdain what our Lord Jesus disdained on the cross. In the cross, we see an example of love. On the cross, we see an example of patience. On the cross, we see an example of humility. On the cross, we see an example of obedience. On the cross, we see an example of despising earthly things. On the cross, we see an example of detachment of clothing and riches. On the cross, we see an example of not caring about greatness of ranks. On the cross, we see an example of not being attached to anything delightful. So, dear family, I like to read together a prayer that St. Thomas Aquinas wrote with a relic of St. Thomas Aquinas. Give me a sharp sense of understanding, Lord, a retentive memory, and the ability to grasp things correctly and fundamentally. And now, I thank you, everyone, for listening and to this very beautiful reflection written by St. Thomas Aquinas. And this, dear family, is a ray of light through the legal love moment for today. Thank you again. God bless you and see you later tonight.